Greetings, scholars, and welcome to week 4 of BMG 230. We are moving right along in this fast-paced course. So let's take a look at where we are and what's upcoming this week. So we just finished week 3, and at the end of week 3, we are at 435 points. Again, you are measuring your points in Blackboard against 435. Looking at the results of test 1, you all did fairly well on it, so great job. Working there. Let's see. Many of you have earned a lot of extra credit points, so you're in a really good position. So let's take a look at where we stand, what's coming this week. So we see the last day to withdraw is the 23rd. In case you are thinking about that, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We can discuss it, see if we can come up with a plan if that's something you're considering. But most of you are in a great place, so hopefully you keep that going and finish strong. So let's look at chapter 7, chapter 8. Just going to touch on a few points on both of those chapters. So let's see. Chapter 7 is organizing for success. So it's thinking about the organization as a whole and how do you set up the organization for success. So what does that mean? One of the easiest ways or the most visual ways to think about organization is an org chart. So we have an example here. But think about what the org chart tells you. Like it says here, the reporting structure, but also the division of labor, right? We see who's at the top. We have our president. We see the main divisions there, and then we see departments within each one of those divisions. So this is a reporting structure following the lines here, right? These 4 groups report to the president. These groups report. This line also goes from the president as well. But as we see, these lines come up from here. So it's a chain of command, in other words. When we're thinking about chain of command and as far as authority, we're talking about span of control, so the number of subordinates who report directly to one executive or supervisor. So 2 different types of span of control. You have a narrow span. This is mostly seen in a tall organization that has many reporting levels, and so you have very few people reporting to one person. But then you also have a wide span. So this is considered a flat organization, fewer reporting levels, but this one person is now responsible for multiple people. So it could be a variety of different areas, many subordinates reporting to one person. So think about environments that are conducive to a narrow span. When would it be best for one person to supervise or manage a relatively small group of people? Or what type of environment will work best for one person to supervise maybe 30 or 40 people? Think about the type of environment that will work best in. Looking at authority and delegation. So authority is a legitimate right to make decisions and to tell other people what to do. So the person who actually has the position. But I'm certain by looking at the reviews or your responses to the assessments, many of us have been in environments where maybe we've seen someone who did not have the authority to tell you what to do. However, that did not stop them from telling people what to do or trying to. Delegation, from a management perspective, I actually found that to be pretty difficult. Maybe it's because I'm slightly a control freak at times, but I had to learn to let go of things because you'll drive yourself crazy trying to accomplish everything. So delegation is certainly necessary, but it takes a little practice if you're not used to it. And then accountability, one of my favorite words. The expectation that employees will perform a job, take corrective action when necessary, and report their performance. I'm going to assign you a task. I'm going to give you everything that you need to complete that task. My expectation is that you're going to complete it. If you have any issues or concerns, I expect that you express those to me so that we can work through them. So I'm going to hold you accountable for what I'm giving you. Why do you delegate? Some benefits to it, leveraging your energy and talent, making sure you're not devoting it all to one thing, you're spreading it out. Conserve your most valuable asset, time. That is so true. And then also helps develop your subordinates, give them skills. It gives them an opportunity to practice, to learn something new, and then promote subordinate sense of importance and commitment. I don't know why it started over again. Just one last thing I want to touch on for chapter 7, and that is the 2 different ways of making decisions, a centralized organization versus a decentralized organization. So centralized is the most common. So high level executives make decisions and pass them down to lower levels for implementation. That's the typical structure that we saw in that first pick, where we have a president and multiple layers behind them. Central organizations are great when there are many different things taking place within that organization or highly specialized areas. But the downside to it is that it takes time, or they're said to be slow to respond to issues because of those multiple layers of communication that has to go through, versus a decentralized organization. So this is lower level managers make important decisions. So this decentralized organizations are said to be more responsive. They can respond quicker, implement decisions quicker, because they're not waiting for one person to make a decision. Lower levels have the authority to make those decisions and implement them. Institutions of higher education are great examples of decentralized organizations. You have a president at the top. However, you have deans who are over academic units, you have directors, so they are then given the power to make decisions within their unit, although they still report to one president. Let's take a look at Chapter 8, Managing Human Resources. So what is human resource management? HRM, system of organizational activity to attract, develop, and motivate an effective and qualified workforce. Many organizations now are adopting the term talent. They're not just referring to HR as, human resources, talent office. I think that is a sign of the times, as roles are adjusting and companies are trying to emphasize how much they care about the people that work there. Definitely a strategic role as organizations attempt to compete through people, which I feel is the most valuable resource of any organization. Let's see. So one big part of human resource, although it's not limited to this, is staffing your organization through recruitment and selection. Many different ways to hire individuals, and we're going to go through some of the examples in this chapter. But here's an example, or just an ad from Quicken Loans. Their motto is, we eat our own dog food. What they're trying to say is we get our best employees from other employees. So they're saying they trust their employees so much that they want them to refer other great people to the company to work for them. So that's one model there. Quicken Loans is said to be really good as far as their culture, and the people who work there tend to like working there. It is a demanding environment, we'll say it that way, but they tend to treat their employees well on average. Looking at some different selection methods here. So think about that. Have you ever had any weird experiences when you applied for a job? Anything that was out of the norm that you were asked to do? So applications and resumes are the most common. Then you have your interviews, your reference checks, personality tests, drug testing. Think about personality tests. How do you feel about that? Taking a personality test as a part of your application process versus taking a personality test once you are hired and starting in your new role. Is there a difference there? Do you prefer one or the other? We also see, here's some examples here, right, of some of our performance testing. Amazon, in their warehouse positions, they have you go through a simulation. If you're applying for like a management position there, where you actually start completing some of the tasks there. So they give you a taste of what it's like. So they give you some information, and then they ask you to go through a simulation to see how well you were paying attention, how well you would do. So they're really trying to find the best people for those positions. And so these methods are ways for them to fine tune their application pool to get the right people in the right spots. Looking at different types of interviews, your structure is one of the most common ones, where they ask every candidate the same set of questions. Sometimes this can be a cut and dry process, so some companies are trying to stray away from doing this and start asking more hypothetical questions. So that's your situational or your behavior based. So they're asking you, give me an example of this in your past. A lot of times with that, even if you may not have a lot of work experience, if you have some academic experience, you may be able to substitute that example. So try to think outside of the box when they ask you about something in your past. Try to find an area that that is close to it where you can discuss what you did and what the results were. Last thing I want to touch on for chapter 8 is different types of training. So we see at the bottom here, diversity training. So programs that focus on identifying and reducing hidden biases against people with differences and developing the skills needed to manage a diversified workforce. This is extremely important. And if you're paying attention to what's happening in the workplaces, we are seeing way too many examples of companies or that end up saying we need diversity training. I think Starbucks was maybe 2 years ago, was probably one of the best examples. And I think it was 2018, or maybe earlier this year, or 2019, where they closed all of their stores for diversity training because of an incident that happened in Philadelphia. So this is something that is extremely important. Companies are trying to be proactive and get ahead of this as best as possible. There's no way you can control the actions of all your employees, but you can try to equip them with the skills and tools necessary for them to best do their job. All right, that's chapter 7 and 8. Have an amazing week.